autopiloters, they are all dying off with their experiment, Simon Ekpa. Please, I would like to make just a special announcement. The IPOB USA will be having a general house meeting on Sunday, August the 13th at 4 p.m. Biafra land time. 4 p.m. Biafra land time on Sunday, this Sunday, 2 days to come. All hardcore Biafrans, IPOB members, all hardcore IPOB members are encouraged to come. Please come with your questions, be respectful. We will address all issues so that we can keep moving. The Zoom information, please kindly call your respective coordinators or a regional coordinator to get that detailed information about the Zoom. That's all I want to say. Thank you so much, Dr. Alozie. Keep the good work going. Ndeo.
Thank you very much, Mazi. Thank you. The call number is +1 484 767 0848. Live broadcast from Radio Biafra USA. It is painful. It's very painful. Caller, your name and where you calling.
Mazi Alozie, are you talking to me?
Yes, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mazi Alozie. And there were Mazi Alozie, what you're playing today is cutting Biafrans to the heart. We're bleeding. This moron. And let me give special thanks to you. Special thanks to all Radio Biafra presenters. Let me give special thanks to my leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Because if it's not for him, I would not even have the guts. I would not even have the mind to come and speak to anybody publicly about how I'm feeling about my existence in this world. But Chineke gozie Mazi Nnamdi Kanu because he has given us a platform, given us the voice. If I didn't meet Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, if I didn't see him, if I didn't hear his voice, I would have never known how to even express myself. That alone, great Biafrans, is liberation. That alone is freedom. Biafra is here. Biafra is here. Where is Biafra? Biafra is here living with me and you right now. In our hearts, we are free to make our point, to tell these people that they're morons. The man who was speaking is an intellectual, just like my leader calls them. Intellectuals. They speak all lies. Everything they say is lies. They sprinkle it with a few sprinkle of truth. That's all you hear. They will lie, connive, speak big grammar, have big certificates, but sprinkle it with a little truth, and you think they're making sense. This man makes no sense whatsoever. Makes no sense. At long last, he tells us, come and join politics. Who does this sound like? Who does this sound like? This is what the intellectuals and the morons in the East have been telling Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Oh, if you want to change Biafra land, come and join politics. We tell them no. We don't want to join your corrupt, inept, stupid politics. We cannot join you. I need a go. When we started the radio program, IPOB USA Women's Program on the radio, we told you and we told the world that we are all learned now. We know what you know. How can you continue to subdue me when I know exactly what you know? You did it to my forefathers because they didn't have the same stupid Western education that is killing this stupid man that is talking on our radio now. that moron who is expressing, well, you come into politics, we can elect, we can have democracy. What is democracy? My sisters and I will deal with that tomorrow. Let me not touch that part. But this democracy and the humanitarianism that they are creating is only for them. They have no black man in mind. And you're calling your brother who rose up to protest, you're calling them jantas. What is, do you know the meaning of janta? Do you know what that means? This is French word, janta. And you come and speak that to your own brother, telling us that your brother who is rising up and saying, come and build your factory in our land. Come, let me show you that we have people who can do this work. And then you can buy this oil and gas. You can buy this uranium when it's manufactured and extracted from our ground. And you're calling them juntas? Your mouth will be junted. Your family will be junted. And let me tell you, Nigeria will happen to all of them, one by one, one by one. They're killing themselves anyway. Let me calm down because tomorrow we'll deal with some part of some of this. Because Mazi Ike Peters really hit them where it hurt. And let us to listen to Kosisi this morning. People, if you're not listening to Radio Biafra, you're missing a whole lot. Yes, Mazi?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but if you're not listening to Radio Biafra, you cannot be empowered like I'm being empowered right now. I am empowered to speak to great Biafrans and listen to that are listening to say, great Biafrans, hold on. Fight for your right. Fight for freedom. It is the epitome of living. If you are not free, you are not alive. And here I am arguing. If they can take our resources to make their people better in their land, we want to stay. We want to use our resources to make life better for the people in our land. The only thing onye Africa, onye ojii fuzo. But how are we they want to trample on us. They want to continue trampling on us. And people are rising up. And Biafrans will rise up. And we are saying, no, Bikunu, sorry, you can't do this. I thank you, Mazi, for the great work you do for us. But this morning, both yourself and Mazi Ike Peters, if you have not been listening to Radio Biafra all along and listen only on this one Friday morning, you have gotten the gist of what we're trying to tell you. And what carry that neo-colonialism and colonialism must leave Africa. Africa must be free to manage our own resources, manage our own time, manage our own people, use our own resources to enrich our own selves, not now. babu the chop. Oge nke agala. Anyị niile nwere asambodo ahụ. Akwụkwọ ahụ unu shai bịa mụọ akwụkwọ, mụọ English unu, mụọ French unu. Anyị amụtacha ya ọfụma na.
Affairs or any internal development. The Sub-Saharan African Society. So currently we are live also on YouTube. We're streaming live on YouTube. For those of us who are interested to also go on YouTube and talk, we're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. So we decided to go on this information dissemination and deep analysis, because that is exactly what Africa needs currently. Africa needs sound information to survive the era. Africa needs a constructive understanding of what is happening to survive currently this era. So that's exactly what we are going to talk about. So Niger have the Sub-Saharan African Society. So currently we are live also on YouTube. We're streaming live on YouTube. For those of us who are interested to also go on YouTube and talk, we're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. So we decided to go on this information dissemination and deep analysis, because that is exactly what Africa needs currently. Africa needs sound information to survive the era. Africa needs a constructive understanding of what is happening to survive currently this era. So that's exactly what we are going to talk about. So Niger have really covered a whole lot of mainstream media pages. I'm talking about covering international platforms. Niger have been an interesting issue of discussion currently. And a lot of people tend not to understand the strategic importance of Niger. A lot of people do not understand the political gerrymandering. I'm talking about political manipulations and the importance of the geopolitics ongoing in Africa. And that is why I mostly appreciate Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and by extension, the leadership of IPOB, to have created a platform where people will be properly educated. Because guess what? I don't think if there is a movement, if there is no movement like IPOB, I don't think each and every one of us will have privy to some of the information we share amongst ourselves. So such a platform has been so reawakening, it has been so resounding, so to say, and we must give kudos to that evolution. Is really wonderful. So we're going to look at Niger so that you understand the drama, you understand every single thing going on in Niger. Remember, you have to share this program. Also, we're streaming live on our YouTube channel. So you have to really understand what is going on in Niger so that you can understand the perspective of the conflict or the perspective of crisis, as the case may be. But first of all, let's look at what actually is Nigerian foreign policy within African continent. What is Nigerian foreign behavior? How does Nigeria relate to her neighbors or within African continent? Because if you understand Nigerian foreign policy from African perspective, you can now understand why certain individuals feel it as a worthwhile to engage in possibly belligerent approach in Niger. Now, Nigeria have a foreign policy system within the African neighborhood that is called good brother policy. So to African countries, especially those of ECOWAS member states, or those that find themselves within the West African sub-region, Nigeria believes that she owns them that responsibility to be a good neighbor. That is Nigerian foreign policy within the West African sub-region. So Nigeria ordinarily believes she must be a good neighbor to every country that finds herself within West Africa sub-region. And it is that good neighbor policy that Nigeria used to win a whole lot of support, especially amongst our neighboring countries, against any other internal concerns, like even Biafra. I want you to understand something. What we are talking about, deep political issues, deep political discourses. So I wish there is open channel of calling in on this program where people can ask questions. What I want you to understand, what we want to discuss here is issues that think tanks cannot bring to public domain, because politics is all about the smartness of the wise and undoing of the populace. That is what is all about. That is how I defined it, especially in the modern politicking. I see it as the smartness of the few wise in quote, against the what they call the gullible populace. So Nigeria, to her neighboring countries, sees herself as a wealthy, a big nation, or a big country that must play a good neighbor policy, that must be a source of survival for the neighbors. For instance, most neighboring West African countries gain a whole lot of things, including subsidize certain products from Nigeria. For instance, if you look towards Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, Nigeria supplies them gas, liquefied natural gas, through what we call West African Gas Pipe Project. That West African pipe project connects from Biafran land down to Ondo, then Ogun, connecting to Lagos, enter Badagry, enter Benin Republic, enter Togo, then gets to Ghana. But I made you to understand that the origin of that gas is from Biafran land. So that when you understand, when somebody tells you that Nigeria operates good neighbor foreign policy within the West African sub-region, you should understand that the resources at which Nigeria sustains that policy is even a Biafran resources. Nigeria does not supply yam to them. Nigeria does not supply onion to them. Nigeria does not even supply cows to them or cocoa. What Nigeria supplies, uses in influencing, in getting these neighbors on her own side, is mainly the resources extracted from Biafran soil. That is on West African gas project. Now, when you look at the north, which is the ongoing project, the Trans-Sahara gas pipe, is also piped down from Biafran land, most especially Abia, Imo, then transited down to Ogi, then moved down to north, connect to Niger Republic, then moved down to Algeria. But that one is not mainly for West African supply, it's mainly for European supplies. So also a Biafran resources. So Nigeria uses what she gained from the Biafran region to advance her influence, so that these people in no way will ever wish for the end of Nigeria, because ordinarily Nigeria is a source of survival to them. To Niger, she supplies electricity. The same thing also happened in Benin Republic and the rest of them. They also fund some projects, even in these countries. You can remember Buhari bought SUVs for Niger, or the Asted, when the Asted leader of Niger was there. Even when Nigerian police hadn't known. The same Buhari took a railway project to Niger, even when Biafran land had none or have none. So you see, the reason why we are trying to educate ourselves, is for us to understand that there are certain things you cannot objectively pursue without, first of all, being information efficient, because deficiency is more disastrous than whatever you can anticipate. And that is why all over the world, one of the highest invested projects is on disinformation and misinformation. These are two different ballgames all over the world. Every country invests heavily on disinformation and misinformation. These are two different concepts. I might not really spend my time here to start educating us on what these concepts are all about. But technically, or should I say holistically speaking, it's all about psychological operation. They are all products of psychological operations. So what are we trying to say this evening? This is a Nigerian foreign policy on these countries. And remember, the essence of Nigeria, do not forget, the essence of Nigeria running such foreign policy is to scare away these neighboring countries from in any way being antithetical to the position of Nigeria over her internal affairs or any internal development. And that is why, historically speaking, these countries have been so inimical, so, uninterested to dive into Nigerian local or internal affairs. So you understand. But the reality of today is changing that narrative. I want you to understand that the current reality is changing that narrative. That is Nigerian foreign policy on one aspect. Now let's look at French foreign policy so that you understand how everything seems to be, interchanging and of course encouraging each other. I told you what Nigerian foreign policy within West African sub-region is all about. And let's look at French foreign policy, especially within the West African sub-region. Well, French foreign policy towards West African sub-region, most especially to Francophonian states. Who are the Francophonian states? The Francophonian states are those countries that were colonized by French. They are all called Francophonians. Just the way those that were colonized by Britain were called Anglophonians, or sorry, Anglophones. So these are Francophones and Anglophones. Do not forget that. Now, to the Francophones, the French government believes that despite they are not directly colonized. Despite that they are not currently colonized, so to say, that they are still hoodwinked, they are still interconnected into French imperialistic system. I'm going to explain so that you understand. But to give you a better understanding of what the scenario looks like, let's go back to colonial history of these African states so that you appreciate why what is happening today in all those countries are happening. Because, you know, when you have problem with history, you will have a bad future to contend with. I repeat, if you have problem with history, invariably you have a bad future to contend with. And that's exactly the problem most African societies are facing, because we have been so repulsive, we have been so, resentful to history. Now, let's look at the colonial history in a very brief, because we have a handful of things to discuss this evening on these issues. You see, during the colonial time, French ran a system of colonial policy known as policy of assimilation, though they later changed to policy of association. But I'm going to explain what it is. During the colonial time, when the French were colonizing this country, France decided to assimilate these people. The word assimilation means making them to be French in everything they do, deeply Frenchifying them, except on the color of their skin. So everything about these countries were all Frenchnized. They were deeply made to speak French language, eat French food, dress like French people, and just be French, except the color of their skin. That was the policy, the colonial policy French government operated in Francophones. That was the colonial policy of French. Although later on, the people began to be somehow worried, they began to show, dissatisfaction with that foreign policy, and French switched to policy of association, while Britain was running indirect rule system. You get what I'm saying? So these people were deeply penetrated, because the idea French had was to have French people in Africa, but with a black skin. In other way around, was to Frenchifies everything about the Africans that find themselves in French colonies. Do you know what happened? When the colonial era ended, as a matter of fact, factors that led to the end of colonialism. You look at the Pan-Africanist voices. You also look at the position of United States, United Nations, and of course, at that time, there was a need to shift the paradigm. So, when colonialism ended, French just ended their presence in terms of administrative presence. Take note of that. What French ended in Francophone was her administrative presence. How do I mean? You don't have a French colonial master administering those places. That was what French ended. The physical control or personnel control of those African countries, French ended it. But did French ended control ideally in those societies? No. And that is what we call imperialism. Not only French, Britain also is operating the same thing, even in Nigeria. So French ended her physical presence in terms of being the administrators, being the presidents, being what have you. in those places. But French government did not end the idea of controlling everything in those countries. For instance, all those countries known as Francophonians or Francophones, they all mint their CFA. They have a common currency they use amongst them. That currency called CFA is mint in France. France mints that money, or let me use a word some of us will understand. France print that money, but that is not the right language. The right language is minting. You mint currencies, not printing, you know. So French government mints that money, decides the exchange parity with Euro. I don't know if you understand me. Let me explain something. Let me rephrase it so that you understand better. French government means the local currency these guys use. In fact, French government makes sure they use a unified currency known as CFA. The CFA that is used in Cameroon is also CFA used in Niger, using Gabon and all the rest of them. So French means money for them. Remember, you have to share this program so that people can, is really informative. French means the money. French decides the exchange parity between that money and Euro. Normally, what determines exchange parity of currency is trade, nothing else, trade. That is what decides exchange parity. For instance, when somebody's like today, Naira is selling over 900 against $1. Nobody feels that price. That price is being regulated by human activities, by social activities. How many people are chasing for dollars? If more people are chasing for dollar, then dollar value will go high. If more people are chasing for Naira, Naira value will go high. If more people are using dollar for more Naira, Naira will appreciate. That is what appreciates currency. That is how parity is decided. Except a country decides to do what we call devaluation, currency devaluation. But whether you devalue or not, the exchange system of your local currency is determined by trade, especially international trade. How much are you selling outside? If you're a country that sells a lot, your currency will be appreciated because most people will be at your border looking for your local currency in order to conduct business, to buy. But when you don't produce, nobody chases your local currency. That's why, even though Russia is at war, a lot of foreign currencies are looking for Russian ruble because those foreign currencies want to buy gas. Russian gas is an unavoidable product. They want to buy Russian nuclear fuel. America needs it to fuel her nuclear plants. European members needed the Russian nuclear fuel. Also, those in aviation industry also need Russian fuel to fly their jets. So, though Russia is in a war, faced with all-round sanctions, yet ruble is appreciating, getting stronger than dollar because of what is leaving Russian ground. Who wants to buy Russian products? You understand? So, in the case of this African country, France refused to allow them to develop a system that can appreciate their local lives. One of those where France mentioned that they don't have a strong finance or currency is to discourage any form of production. So what does France do in all these countries? For instance, Niger. What they do in Niger is this. First of all, let's look at the educational system. They make sure they destroy educational system so that the only people that can be regarded to be educated in quote are those people who have flown to Paris or any other French cities and they have education. So education, being educated in Francophonian society or African Francophones, for you to be regarded to be educated, you must have gone to France, studied, and come back. And going to France, you're not going to France on a bare hand. Going to France, you use the CFA, your weak CFA, to chase a lot of euro, thereby making euro to appreciate because many CFAs are chasing few available euro. The same way is also happening in Anglophonian society. Most of you don't regard anybody that studied in Nigeria because the educational system, Britain made sure that they destroy every educational system in Nigeria so that you can sell your valuables and chase pounds. Because if you're going to UK to study, which almost virtually that is the desire of most people now, you have to look for your weak naira chasing few pounds. In so doing, you are now socially dependent to them. So that is Western imperialism. That is how it's structured. Educationally, they make sure you are so interconnected in their system, you're so hoodwinked into their system that your pursuit for what they have will drain your economy, will destroy your economy, will make you to be so dependent in their system at the detriment of your own system. So that is on the social aspect or educational aspect. Let's also look at other aspects like finance. I explained to you, all these countries go to Paris, they mint the money, they give to them, and they decide the exchange rate, thereby deciding what happens to them. And do you know one funny thing? If all these countries tell you how much France tax them in minting these monies for them, you will not believe it. And these countries cannot even go to China to mint the money by themselves. If they go to China, they will have even a cheaper prices to get these monies mint for them. But guess what? France made it in a way that for you to operate in all these countries, you must get the approval. The same thing is happening in British company called Nigeria. Even till tomorrow, there is no multinational company that is not owned by Britain operating in Nigeria that does not pay security tax or what they call security clearance from British government, not to the Nigerian government. So when people seize you as a slave, what they are indirectly telling you is the level at which they have penetrated you, the level at which they have subjugated you, the level at which they have put you into perpetuity of servitude, which most people do not understand. So that is on education. Also, another way they also make sure these people don't have a life of their own is to cajole them into signing defense pact with them. That is security. You see, what French and most virtually all the Western countries do in Africa is to create artificial crisis, create a social disturbances. They create terrorism in all these countries. Now, when they create this terrorism, they arm these fanatics to the teeth. They now run to the government of this country and tell them, look, these boys have the capability to advance even to the doorstep of the seat of power. But if you want us to help you and fight them, Therefore, you have to sign security pact with us. You have to sign defense pact with us. And guess what? Signing defense pact does not mean bringing pen and paper and sign. It runs into billions of dollars. That is what you're going to spend. Now, look at the joke of it all. When they ask you to sign this defense pact with them, they make sure that the certain equipments you need to repel these internal threats are not available to you. When you're going for when these countries are going for armed procurement, they make sure they don't have certain equipments. Those equipments that will make these societies to deal with the threat of terrorism. The Western nations will deny them those equipments because they understand that if these guys have access to this equipment, they will no longer depend on them for protections. So instead of even selling these equipments to the state actors, they make sure that non-state actors are in possession of it. That's why you wonder, why is it we are told at one time that Nigerian Air Force have to pay Boko Haram huge amount of money because Boko Haram was in possession during Buhari time, was in possession of anti-aircraft missile. And as at that time, those terrorists were operating in Zamfara, and Buhari was to travel to Katsina. There is no how he will get to Katsina without passing through Zamfara airspace. And those guys already are in possession of this anti-aircraft. Do you know what happened? The Nigerian Air Force have to pay those terrorists, met them, discuss with them, say, we are going to buy this thing, even though times 100 of the original value, we are going to buy it. Ask yourself, who now gave those Boko Haram? How did they got those sophisticated equipments? All those things were supplied to them by all these Western nations. How? They supply to them this equipment even through some of the humanitarian agencies. Yes, some of these humanitarian agencies. When you see UNICEF vehicle operating at the heart of terrorist domain, you'll be wondering, why are they not attacking UNICEF vehicles? Because at night, some of these equipments are being logistically supplied by these so-called UN and the pro-Western agencies channels. So that was exactly what France was doing in Francophones, making sure they are unstable, doing that in Mali, doing that in Burkina Faso, doing it in Guinea-Conakry, doing it in, just name them, so that these people will perpetually depend on France to survive. That is just what it is. And Britain also run the same tactics, even in Nigeria. So that is on the side of military or defense. Also on the side of energy. On the side of energy, they also make sure that these people do not have energy independence. I'm going to tell you something that will marvel you. You see, we know that Niger produces uranium. Is at public domain. We know that. And we also know that in every 3 bulbs, electric bulbs showing in France, one of it is being powered by Nigerian uranium. We know that. Now ask yourself a question. Why is it that for the past 60-something years of French government exploration of uranium products or uranium raw material in Niger, why is it that it has not come to the consciousness of the French government to encourage or bring to Niger an equipment or even build nuclear site for electricity generation in Niger. Because building it in Niger means Niger already have the raw material for the equipment. Why is it that French government has never taken it upon them as community service relationship to build in Niger a nuclear power plant? Hence, they have the raw material. The reason is that they can never encourage anything that will lead to production. Because if these people get energy independent, that means companies will flow in. And when companies flow in, people will get job. And when people get job, people cannot determine their fate. So, to the imperialist power, they understand that subjugation of the African population onto poverty is a way of depriving and stripping them the power of decision of who rules them. Just like in Nigeria, just share 20,000 to 100 people and tell them to cast vote where they know it's not even the ideal place, they will do it. So they weaponize poverty in the system, and they make sure you depend on them. Take for instance, when I talk Nigeria, I also make a comparative analysis with Nigeria. Have you asked yourself a question? When you were born, perhaps you have been hearing about Ajokuta steel industry. I don't know whether any of you know about it. Ajokuta steel industry. Do you know why that steel industry today can never function? Because Britain understands that if Nigeria gets steel plant, the Igbo population in Nigeria will get a cheap steel and start developing technologies or technological equipment. So their concern is that we should never allow steel in Nigeria. Hence, you still have people in that population that still have interest to drive on science and technology. So you will do everything possible to sabotage it. Not with external forces, sabotage it with internal animals who do not understand anything, who are not even conscious of the fact that what they are contracted to sabotage is against their own. So that's why India has come and ran away. Russia has come and ran away. France, Britain, name US, all have taken contract in Ajokuta steel industry. Monies were wasted right from the time of IBB till now. Ajokuta industry, steel industry is still marriable because it's under heavy Western sabotage. It's under heavy imperialistic sabotage with their house niggers. A lot of their house niggers. Ask yourself, why is it that, for instance, just the way I discussed about Niger, ask yourself a simple question. There are many ways to generate electricity. It's not a rocket science. You can generate electricity through hydro. Hydro is the one you generate through waters. And Nigeria have waters everywhere. You can generate electricity through windmill, in United States, in Germany, and all over the places. You see, windmills. You can also generate electricity through solar. China is doing amazingly well on that. And Nigeria, of course, is having sun ray westing every day. You can generate electricity through gas turbine. Nigeria have gas, of course, it's from Biafran soil. You can also generate electricity through, what is it called? Uranium or nuclear. You understand me? So these are channels at which you can generate electricity. And do you know the funniest thing? Let me tell you, for those of you who care to understand. Every single thing I have pointed out for you, whether uranium, whether hydro, whether gas turbine, whether solar, and which other one, whether wind, Nigeria have all of them excess. But let me tell you one shocking thing. Nigeria does not have Nigeria is not generating up to 30% of local energy consumption. Do you know why? The imperialist power makes sure that this project can never be achieved. And guess what? They felt that if the issue of electricity is solved, these people will begin the process of industrialization that will threaten everything they dump in African markets like Nigeria. And that's why they do everything possible. And when other countries decide to do the needful in terms of sympathy, on the ground of sympathy, let me tell you something. You see, international politics is a game of interest. It's so dirty. And that is why I always appeal to us, some of us who choose to be on this platform, to be less emotional, less sentimental. Because it's all about interest. Nobody loves you. Nobody hates you. What they love in you is when you are playing on the established rules. And what they hate in you is when you have decided to look inward against external exploitation. That is when the hatred comes. And that is why you would have asked yourself, okay, if the Western imperialists decided not to allow Nigeria to achieve energy independence, what then happens to countries like China? Does it mean China could not help? When China wanted to help, they also approached China and told China, we will never allow that to happen, but we're going to give you a slot. We are going to allow them to import every single generator they need. Let them get it from you. We have no issue with that. And when China understood that this is what the imperialists are telling her, and those in leadership of the contraption that would have revolted, championed it, those in Ministry of Education, Ministry of Power and Steel, those in Asoro, who would have pressured China to do what will benefit the nation. But they choose to take few yuan or few dollar and look sideways. After all, are they spending their time here? Now China will now say she cannot fight for what people are not ready to fight for themselves. Okay, let us just forget investing in their energy, because it will hurt our Western partners' interest. And besides, the local leaders are not interested to do anything. China will say, okay, let's just make sure we sell our generators, we sell our solar panels to them. Do you know how much Nigerians spend importing solar panels from China? It runs in billions of dollars. And China discovers, man, it's less stressful, it's more of the benefit of ours, because the more they place more demands on, our solar panels, on our generators, the more we are having reason to expand these factories, building all these things. And in so doing, get more people to work on all those factories. And somebody you're calling your Excellency is presiding over these self-destructions. And that's where I have problem with a lot of people, a lot of us, because we allocate titles to where it ought not to be allocated to. The word excellency should be given to people who understand what their people need and vigorously pursue it. You don't call criminals excellency. You don't call people who are naive, mentally bereft of societal development your excellency. You don't call people who go to cause by judgments your excellency. That is not what that connotes. But because we are stupid, we also call people who are presiding over our subjugations. We call them your excellency because we are mentally destroyed not to think, not to ask basic questions. So that is what it is, you know. So this is how French government had established a ground in most of the Francophones, and automatically she began to flourish. So the people in all these countries began to be a kind of slaves in the plantations. So when you now go to Mali or the diamond site in Guinea or any other place or the uranium site in Niger, when you go to those places, you see Nigerians looking so hungry, so tattered, but they are down the over, 300,000 feet, looking for precious stones, looking for various natural solid minerals. And when they get those solid minerals, they will hand it over to the white expatriate, just waiting at the upland, at the exchange of just less than $50. And the expatriate, a French citizen, will ship that thing immediately to France. That's exactly what is happening. If you go to Niger Delta, you see how wretched the youths are there. When you ask them, they say they are pipeline contractors. Which pipeline are they securing? A Niger Delta man is securing a gas pipeline, transporting gas to Europe. That's what he's securing. But in his house, he does not even have a cooking gas. He's still using firewood. His aged mother is suffering from eyes problem because smoke have damaged his eyeball. But his uninformed son is, at night in the forest, securing a pipeline, transporting pipeline for the European citizens. Man, I just felt something just heated my body because it's unbelievable. And you see them, they come on national television bragging and prouding over such. The likes of Asari will boldly tell you that that is what they do. You don't have, your parents are still cooking with firewood. They go down to the forest to fetch the firewood, carry it on their heads, then come back home, feed you for you to grow up and protect a gas that is going to be channeled to every single home in UK, every single home in France, every single home in Spain. But in your own village where these things are coming, you are still struggling to buy 1 kg, 1 kilogram of gas. You can't afford it. So these are realities. It's really painful to discuss it. And of course, you shouldn't expect this kind of discussions on mainstream media because they are heavily censored and paid. Yes, there is no popular media platform that is not under secret international security agencies payroll. Quote me. Quote me. In fact, as little as somebody having 10,000 followers, you're already a ripe point of attraction for secret service investment, except you are conscious that you can reject their offer. Ordinarily, you're a channel of investment to disinform and misinform people. Yes, that is what it is. So this is how French say. But let's see also what French did aside these things. Because ordinarily, French operates within the Francophones country. But something happened. I want you to understand something. Something happened, and subscribe. We're also becoming live there as much as we can, because Facebook has been terribly unfriendly to me. Facebook has been terribly unfriendly. So you also check, if you go to Chika Austin on my YouTube channel, just search it out. You subscribe for notifications whenever I come in. But sometimes I'm being threatened to restrict here, so that we can also be doing something good on that YouTube channel. So now let's see. Let's go further. So the boundaries of Francophones, but there's something that happened, and that's exactly what I want to point our attention to. At a time during the Biafra Nigerian Civil War, something happened, and the essence of coming to this lane is to make you understand certain things happening. Issue of international politics is not game of keys. I always allude that. I always subscribe to that. Owing to the fact that most people do not understand the complicity of international politics. People think it's something, hey, yeah, why can't DOS maximize this opportunity? We want DOS to take advantage of this. No, brother. That is not that is not the behavior of that terrain. It's a very complex terrain. Very, very complex. Devoid of your emotion, devoid of your sentiment, but highly entrenched by how much you're able to analyze every single movement. That's why there is no country on earth that entrusts position of foreign minister to dummies. You don't. Because it is a platform at which you must be on a constant analysis of every single development. Like most of us will come, I read our comments. I respect your comments because it's sacrosanct to you. But one thing I want us to understand is when events are evolving this way, it's not something you dabble into. If you dabble into it, you can be used for sacrifice, for others' interest advancement. This is one thing people do not understand. So it's better for you to be calculatively sluggish than uncalculatively fast, which can be so devastating. So that's, by the way, so something happened after the Civil War. Sorry, after the Nigeria Biafra War. I don't call it Civil War because there's nothing civil about the war. It was, Biafra Nigerian War. So after the war, but within the war, take note of this, French government supported Biafra. In fact, French government mobilized Francophones, some of them to give support to Biafra. But do you know what happened? In course of that war, Britain told France that, look, the worst mistake we can do as Europeans is to allow these people to win this war. Because as a matter of fact, Biafran soldiers were almost capturing Lagos. They have crossed Ore. Go and study the history. They were almost at the point of advancing to Lagos. So what Britain saw was so disturbing. They felt, no, these guys, we just have to mobilize as much as international corporations and understanding as much as we can. And they went into action. Now, they told French, because French was supporting Biafra and also helping Biafra to get support of some of Francophones near states, So, Britain approached France and said to France that this is the disastrous policy you are making. To think your support for these people is going to be for your interest. Look, review this support, because if these people eventually win, if they gain this independence, they are going to stop us from using Africa as an market outlet. Because these people are so enterprising, they are so embedded with the consciousness and understanding, the wit behind science and technology. You can see what they are doing, why the war is going. You can see a whole lot of inventions they are doing. So if within a war circle, they could be this marvelous, outstanding in science and technological driven, that means if they become an independent state, they will even go to space. Now, this is what Britain was telling France. And Britain, we are losing Asia because Japan got Western technological exposure. You get? So Britain said to them, we are losing Asia because Japan have access to science and Western technologies, innovations. So if we allow that to happen, that means we are going to be on the lose out. So because of that advice, Britain gave France. France withdrew her support for Biafran people. It was a very big diplomatic blow. French government withdrew. And to further entice France, France was told that she will be a partaker of war booties. Whatever is gotten at the end of the war, that Britain is not going to take it only. And France saw reason. You see, most of you don't understand that the gas pipeline you're seeing crossing Niger, or that is ongoing construction in Niger, that was a project of 1970s. Most of you don't know. They started that project, the initiation of that project from 1970s. You get what I'm saying? In 1970s, that was when that project was first initiated. Now, what happened? What makes 1970s popular? The war ended in 1970, and the Trans-Sahara gas pipe project started in 1970s. So you can now understand one of those things Britain promised France is that if you don't support these people, at the end of it, we are going to connect their pipe, their gas, to Europe, and we enjoy it free, if possible. And France is all about interest. Accepted that. So when some of you are hearing Trans-Saharan gas pipe project, and you think is initiative of Buhari, no. That project was part of post-Civil War agreement, post-Biafra Nigerian War agreement, I mean to say. It was part of the agreement the imperialist powers made with the Nigerian state and said, if you people support us, we are going to make sure we pipe their resources to Europe. So Buhari is just doing the implementation phase. Go and research. That project started in 1970s. Yes, it was the post-Biafran Nigeria's war initiative. So it's just that one or two factors made it to linger to this time. Only heaven knows. It was part of the agreement that led France to abandon Biafran people to their fate. And one thing that have shocked me about that project is that that project have been, because I have taken a holistic research and investigation from the ab initio to hitherto, every single thing surrendering that project, I have come to the realization that that project has faced a challenge no one has ever faced, no project have ever faced. So it's a cost project. Anytime that project seems to see the light of the day, something happens. Because it was a project of conspiracy. It was an initiative of conspiracy. It was born and bettered against a nation who never had any crime ever committed other than asking for self-determination, the right to exist as a people. So let's advance more so that people can understand we are not here to burn your time or your times, so to say. So what now happened? Nigerian government assured France, and France abandoned Biafrans to their fate, And furthermore, apart from that, one of those things too, Nigerian government agreed with France, or Britain assured France of, is that if you don't allow Nigeria to break up, if you don't support these people to, exit, we are going to use Nigeria as a police for Francophones. See, Britain was assuring France, apart from the gas project, that if you don't support Nigerians' disintegration during the war, that we are going to make sure Nigeria will stand as a watchdog for you amongst all the Francophones. What that means is that what Nigeria will be doing to France is that anybody that enters into governance in any of the Francophones that is not in support of French interest, Nigeria will get the person out of the way for French interest. It happened, I can name, it happened in Gambia. Go and research. It also happened in Ivory Coast. Remember Babu and Ouattara? It happened. Do you know that what you have in Chad is also a junta, military junta? But Nigeria is not complaining because the guy in Chad is serving French interest. And Nigeria cannot get him off way. Because Nigeria is the watchdog, is the attack dog of French government. That was part of those things. Britain assured France to mobilize Nigeria or use Nigeria for her in order for France to review her support for Biafra. So Nigeria is going to be there as a one big, in quote, country who buys anyone who is not pro-France. in any of the francophones. You can see in Cameroon, you have an Auto-Nigerian ruling Cameroon. I mean, extremely an old man. Nigeria cannot comment there because he's just serving French interest. And Nigeria is kept to be united in order to advance imperialist powers' interests, not for her own. That's why Nigeria cannot protest, cannot even as a as a good neighbor. If it's a country that have the consciousness of Africans at heart, by now Nigeria would have been advising Cameroon to consider changing leadership, at least through democratic. Nigeria would have been asserting that influence, but Nigeria cannot do that because one of those reasons why France abandoned Biafrans is to have an African country that will be an attack dog for her and also a watchdog. It's all about interest. So that's why what happened in Niger, France expects Nigeria as a matter of agreement and as a matter of necessity to attack in Niger. And that is the pressure that is hooking Nigerian state. Because in agreement, there is no ground for sympathy and emotion. There is no ground for excuse. Remember, we abandoned people who were supporting the Biafran people during the war because we were told, we were convinced, the French people were convinced that the essence of keeping you as a relatively big or giant within this region is for you to make sure that our interests are not lopsided. And that's why you see all this panic. Nigerian leadership being on severe duress and pressure. Because agreement is an agreement. And of course, the imperialist state have a zero tolerance for default. You cannot default, either consciously or unconsciously. You cannot. So, if Nigeria is not proving, if Nigeria is not going to prove to France and Britain that her existing is to protect their interests, then they will have reason to review their support to Nigeria. And that is where the problem lies. Because the continual existence of Nigeria is not for the interest of the Nigerian people. I want you to understand that. The continuous existence of Nigeria is for the interest of the imperialist powers. So any day they are convinced that Nigeria is no longer protecting their interest within the West African sub-region and by extension continental level, which is African continent, then you will see them, they will review that policy and look for a way to dismantle it. They will dismantle Nigeria because they fixed it. You know, just like scaffold, for those of you who are into building, the scaffold, you know, you use when you're doing some kind of up-roof work. You know, when you look at that, when it's set, you'll be wondering how managed. How did these people were able to set this scaffold down to the topmost floor? You'll be wondering. You might even be thinking they just carry it to that point. No. All those things were set precept upon precept. So the man who set it have the secret of dismantling it. That is exactly the case of Nigeria. So if Nigeria fails to prove to these guys that she can no longer protect their interests in Africa, they would, just like a man who set up the scaffold, They will just dismantle Nigeria. Naturally, they have what it takes. They know where to lose, and everything collapses. It's a natural sequence. It's not something you can argue of. It's not something you can brag. You can make as much as extensive press statement as you like. But what we are talking about is existential realities. That is what we are talking about. We are talking about reality. So, French decision to abandon Biafrans is to have an attack dog. Nigeria is seen as an attack dog to protect, project, and defend the imperialist states' interest in Africa. So that is where the problem lies. Because Nigeria must prove to them, most especially France and Britain, that they can protect their interest in Africa. And there's no other where that expectation is expected than in Niger. In fact, let me tell you something most of you do not understand. A French paper, one of the national French paper, wrote, and I quote, he said that this is the time Tinubu government will prove if the government is legitimatized in the eyes of the West. That is the opinion. It was an editorial. A French popular media platform was saying that the government of Nigeria will only get their legitimacy endorsement if Nigeria proves. Remember, proving in Niger is not just running a car across region, proving with the lives of Nigerians and their resources. You can understand. So this is a country, in fact, the paper is a paper that is owned by a country that is pulling away her military out of Niger. But they don't want reprisal attack. They don't want to lose any of their soldiers. They are afraid to get the vexation of the people on their military. But this is a country that is pulling out their soldiers. They don't want to lose any in Niger. But their papers, their national dailies, is writing that Nigeria will not prove to them, if Tinubu government should prove to them, if actually he's worth trusting. Remember, proving is not just with Nigeria running across Niger or running through Agadas. This is the expectation. Nigeria rolling out tanks, killing her own soldiers, also killing her fellow Africans while they observed. Perhaps Nigeria been able to kill a lot of Nigerians, then they will clap hand. That we told you that Nigeria is wonderful. We told you that our decision of 1970s was an amazing one. We told you that our idea, and they will be drinking coffee, laughing, ho, 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 ho. We told you these guys are very smart, man. You can see. They went there, no minding international convention. They kill a whole lot of Nigerians. Over 500,000 people were killed for French interest. That is their own understanding. That is their own yardstick, their own parameter of measuring if an African government is capable of endorsing as a legitimate government. This is their own definition. For these people to enter to another man's land, their fellow Africans kill, slaughter their people, slaughter their own soldiers. Because people, if you enter Niger, they are not going to fold their hands and watch you for you to pillage and men. Of course, they will retaliate. In so doing, some of our Nigerian soldiers will also fall. And a lot of Nigerians will also fall. These are Africans fighting for interest, or somebody in Paris idly sitting on his coffee table, watching it on the TV and smiling. So these are realities on ground. Now let's look at some of the challenges, because much is expected from Nigeria. Because I told you, if Nigeria proves, especially through Niger, that she cannot protect Western interest in the sub-region, they will do everything humanly possible to dismantle Nigeria. I mean, disintegrate her. These guys are not jokers. There is no Jesus agenda in their dictionary. They are just out for their interest and nothing more. They might smile before camera, but behind camera, they are something else. They don't joke. They don't kid. They just straight chasers. So pressure is already on Nigeria. If you listen to a lot of international commentators and all, you will understand they have put a whole lot of pressures, expectations on Tinubu's government. And funny thing, Tinubu government also have a whole lot of things to contend with. In fact, as a matter of fact, I believe that Tinubu's government in Nigerian history have been the only government, historically speaking, that started with problem, self-created problem, and likely to end with also self-created problem. Analytically speaking, Tinubu's government is the only government in Nigerian history that entered from day one, created a problem for herself. Only God knows why. You know, our Christian brethren always say, Jesus started with prayer and ended with prayer. You know, Tinubu's government started with problem. And every day, instead of that problem to slow down, we're seeing more. And I understand that in his heart, he never bargained for this. In fact, less than 100 days to his government, he has started telling labor union that he's now living in 2-bedroom flat house. That is to tell you the level of troubles. He have now understand that what the cola nut sounded in the mouth is not actually what the taste looks like. He has now understand that there is difference between shouting Amy Local and the reality on ground. So let's move ahead, because we just need to round up. I think we have done. So let me see how many minutes we've done. Okay, we've done 1 hour, 24 minutes. So we should be doing our best to round up. So these are expectations, but let's see the challenges before Nigeria, because we must try as much as possible to round up so that we call it a day, you know. Now, let's see the challenges, because it's not just enough to say, I will do this, or giving 7 days ultimatum, which have elapsed, you know, that is not just enough. Let's look at the challenges before Tinubu. Tomorrow, remember, tomorrow they will be meeting the members of ECOWAS. Will be meeting in Abuja tomorrow, because the 7 days ultimatum have elapsed. And there's something I want you to understand before I say the last thing before we close, so that you can have your time. for allotted to another thing, you know. You see, if Nigeria chooses to go to that war, bad. If Nigeria also declines, also bad. The situation is so dicey currently that it's not something you can approach with passive understanding. I repeat, if Tinubu's government chooses to use military approach to restore, in quote, the democratically elected government of Niger, unquote, it will be a bad one. If she also deletes herself, I mean the government, from that project, is also the worst. Let me explain before I go to the challenges before the government. If she goes into that war, the rest of Africans will now see her as Western stooge. That is what they will see Nigeria as Western stooge against Pan-African consciousness in Africa. Do you know what that implies? They are going to cook a food, a continental dish, and serve Nigeria that will be so difficult for Nigeria to eat. I repeat, based on current reality, there is a wind of change. If I should go by Chamberlain of Great Britain, there is ongoing wind of change in Africa. There is consciousness growing in Africa. There is reawakening growing in Africa. There is African renaissance, especially on political consciousness. So it implies that any African government that is not doing the part, Algeria, Morocco, South Africa, Egypt, Kenya, Uganda, and these boys in Sahel are doing, outrightly is seen as a saboteur. And already these countries in Africa have already interpreted, look at the conspiracy, they have already succeeded in killing democracy out of Niger crisis. They are no longer seeing it. They have destroyed the narrative of it's all about democracy, fighting against dictatorship. They have destroyed it. That have been destroyed in South Africa, media. Egypt have killed that narrative. Kenya have killed that narrative. Even Nigeria is struggling to sell that narrative. Nigeria is struggling, Nigerian media is struggling to sell to Nigerian populace that Nigeria wants to restore democracy because 2023 election have nothing to show. So channels, Arise TV, and all of them are finding it difficult. In fact, no broadcaster is even, truncating on the topic of Nigeria is going there to restore democracy. It's so difficult. It's a very difficult narrative for them to push. So, if Nigeria goes into that war, the rest of Africa will see Nigeria as a Western puppet, and thus must be disassociated from, and Nigeria will suffer it severely, because they will now be conscious to the fact that if they gather and Nigeria delegates, everybody should be careful. If not, Onota Ogakara, you understand me? Nigeria will now be seen as a Western spy, as a Western stooge. I mean, if she goes to the war. Now, if she doesn't go to the war, look at the danger. If she doesn't go to the war, it will be a story of somebody telling you how sent a priest is. That Okachukwu the Holy, Okachukwu Uweru alias Shirinelu Wona, all kinds of accolades about the priest, only for the wind to blow and take up the garment of the priest. And you now discover that the priest even wear trousers. At that moment, the priest is already demystified. So there is an existing narrative that Nigeria is a giant of Africa, that she has the military might, that she has the economic might, that she has the population, that she can enforce and achieve anything she wants to achieve, especially in West African region. This is a highly popularized concept. So if the giant finally did not go to war, it will not be, we even thought the giant can never be cowed down. The giant cannot be harassed or intimidated. Even the giant can run away from her word, from her ultimatum. And what it means is that these boys will now go back on their planning table on how to enter. It's called sea finish. This is the story of sea finish. Without sea finish, they will see Nigeria finish and go back to their drawing board on how to make sure that the giant does not have that strength again to threaten any of them. And you know what that means? They will now start looking on dividing lines in Nigeria to balkanize the country. It's good. You see, what we are saying is a very long journey. Very, very long journey. It's a very long journey. Our own responsibility, if heaven permits, is to keep on educating you. It's a long journey. You see, the best thing Tinubu would have done would have been not even threaten, but swing into action, use, not threaten anything, but use carrot and stick, thereby sending diplomats to those guys to discuss with them in the same way, trying to build up military presence within the borders. Don't tell them you invade, just build military presence. Don't tell them it's for any purpose. Then diplomats will be there. Then those guys will have option of, our borders are already built up, and we're also discussing. They won't have time to start sealing agreement with Wagner and all the rest of them. They won't have that time. You would have kept them busy on the table. Perhaps start looking for covert operations. But guess what? The Western powers just pushed Tinubu. Trust Tinubu. Tinubu is also fast in speaking. After subsidy removal, he did it on handover note. It was not scripted. It was not written on the handover script. Bam, he dived and said it, and panic buying started. That is just what it is. So let's look at the challenges so that you understand the challenges facing Nigerian state. Because Nigerian state must prove to the West that her existence is worth supporting. If she does not, these guys will review. It's a reality. What we are talking here is not Okandine. That is not what we are talking about. We are not talking Christian mother stories. No. We are talking reality. And reality supersedes illusion. So basically, this is the problem. So let's look at the challenges before Nigeria, and by extension, Tinubu. One of the challenges, one major challenge is the North. The North. Because the North have already warned him expressly that they are not going to be part of that war. that they're not going to be part. And when they have sent such signal, what they are not telling you, if you go ahead to go into that war, they are going to sabotage you. That is what it means. And what is the lesson the North is telling France and Britain? The North is telling France and Britain, look, blood is thicker than water. These are our brothers and sisters. We are not ready to die for your interest, to kill our own people because of British or French interest. This is the language. You see, Tinubu is under heavy pressure from the North, and in the same way under heavy pressure from the Western countries. So if Tinubu obeys the North, it means Tinubu is telling the Western nation that the North are the masters, not even them. And the West will say, okay, hey, good, that's right. Oh no, we got what you're saying, okay? Then they will teach both Tinubu and the North a lesson they will never forget. You understand me? Because what the North are trying to prove to the West is this, that, look, we are not going to risk our relationship, our, paternal relationship with you for your interest. And both Britain and France are just watching. Is that right? Is that what you're saying? Oh, good. Okay. But we kept this entity not for your northern interest, your fucking northern interest. We kept this entity for our own interest. I'm going to dismantle it. Simple. Because Tinubu cannot achieve success in that war without Northern support, because the North are the direct boundary sharers with Niger. And as a matter of fact, Benin Republic, which happens to be another country with direct boundary with Niger, have said that they are not going to open their boundary with Niger as a channel for fighting Niger. They said no. ECOWAS use Nigeria boundary, not our own. So and Chad also having channels say no, they are not going to allow their land border with Niger to be used. So the court is already on the side of the giant of Africa to use her boundary, which means she has to use Sokoto, Katsina. And people in those places are already telling you that they will never be in support of it. So it becomes an issue of concern. So to Britain, to France, they are waiting to see what Tinubu can make out of things. Whether Tinubu is going to be dancing to northern pressures or the western pressure. Time will tell. Time will tell. Now, another challenge in the whole thing the government of Nigeria have is the presence of the indigenous people of Biafra. The presence of the indigenous. You see, IPOB have become a very terrible entity to underrate or underestimate what she can do. And let me tell us something. You see, IPOB is a movement that has a very reasonable global coverage, which means she interacts with almost everybody existing on planet Earth. IPOB interacts with that race. It doesn't matter your race. So Nigerian government is worried that if we are to go and fight this fight, what it means is that we must source for personnel from other states. And if we are going to pull out people, for instance, in Biafran land, we're already in Biafran land, and IPOB is not even, deterred by anybody's presence. So if we are going to move personnel down to the north to enforce or prosecute the Niger oppression, that means we have just left those places in the hand of IPOB. You get what I'm saying? So it is an issue of concern to them. It is an issue of concern that because Nigeria cannot leverage on the number of military personnel they have in the north. She will definitely source from Biafran land. And if she has already, she's under police, and if she now water down the number of personnel in Biafra, so nobody knows. And one of those things that is giving Nigerian government worry is that IPOB have refused to comment. In fact, IPOB have been dangerously pretending as if they don't know, as if she doesn't know what is happening in Niger. They are not making press statement to that effect. They are pretending, doing their normal thing, as if what is happening there, they don't even know that there's a concern. And that is giving Nigerian government worry. That why is it we gave an ultimatum and these people kept quiet? No comment on our ultimatum. No comment on what these guys are doing. There tend to be a dangerous thing these guys are trying to study in the whole scenario. So to the Nigerian government, the silence is not golden. It's not golden. So to them, they wish IPOB could say something. IPOB can at least tell them we are for or we are against. So to them is really worrying. It's really a disturbing one. They are trying to find out why are these guys talking about other things, pretending as if they don't know that anything is happening. They don't know, as if they've not had the name Niger Republic before. Why? So it's really giving Nigerian government problem. Because Nigerian government believes that these people cannot be that intelligent, they cannot be that globally circulated and tell us that they don't know what is happening. So it's a concern. That's another problem. Now, another also problem is the fact, another problem that is really, really eating them up. I have mentioned the North. I've mentioned the silence of IPOB, which is really, 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 really disturbing to them. Another thing that is also worrying them, the Nigerian government, is the position of Russia. Because those guys have been able to curry friendship from Russia, and Wagner is officially operating in Niger. So to the Nigerian government, Russia what Russia did in Ukraine, or what Russia is doing in Ukraine, is really, really a template of what Russia can do. Because you see, Ukraine war, people expected NATO boots to be on the ground. People expected United States, United Kingdom, and all the rest of them to be physically present, not fighting through proxies or machineries. At least have American soldiers in Ukraine or British soldiers in Ukraine. These are things people expected or people predicted. That's why there was popular, there's a popular sayings then that it will lead to third world war, but people believe America would definitely be directly involved. But the truth is, the world was amazed to see that America was not what America saw. She didn't believe it. And not the rest of them. Well, anyway, I think we have to finish up tomorrow because of our time, so that we don't get energy cut off. From tomorrow we will. Thank you, and do enjoy yourself.